a lot of predictions that the Vikings will take Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari, but hot take, I think there's a better idea at safety. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Today is Town Hall Tuesday. That means you all, my hashtag everydayers, have sent in your questions, your hot takes, and I am here to answer them or just react to them. Marvel at your insanity. We definitely have some of that insanity here in this mailbag. If you want to submit for Town Hall Tuesday, you can do so anytime. The link to the show, to the Google Doc that I use for this is in the show notes. If you had bookmarked the old Google Doc, that is no longer in use. There is a new one, so please update your stuff accordingly. First question that I'm going to answer here comes from James Kunow, who asks, what about Andrew Mukuba do you like? Great question. Thank you, James Kunow. I'm going to spin this into a greater kind of thing about like all the DBs. So right now, if you listen to Forno Friday last week, Tyler told us that according to the large majority of industry mock drafts, most people have the Vikings taking a safety, and this has actually been pretty predictive in the past. So it's worth taking into account that the Vikings are looking at Nick Emenwari or Malachi Starks. Doesn't guarantee anything, but pretty favorite outcomes. Okay. Andrew Mukuba is maybe the next safety, depending on how you feel about guys like Xavier Watts or whoever. People are looking at him more as like a firmly day 2 pick, like low round 2, maybe even round 3 kind of guy. I am higher on him than that. I think he would totally be justifiable as a higher pick than that. But what it comes from is a couple of things. One, the Texas defense asked him to move around the formation a lot and to go into a lot of different zone assignments from different angles. That sort of versatility in terms of how you can drop, whether it's from the roof down into a shallow zone, from the box into, a deep zone, playing the run from the box, being able to fit in the alley, all of that stuff checks a whole bunch of boxes for the Vikings, Flores defense, all that. But what's funny is he's not the Texas DB that gets all the credit for being versatile. And I think that's really funny. So this is also going to have to mention Jahdae Barron a little bit. Jahdae Barron probably going to be gone when the Vikings pick. Has been actually mocked to the Vikings quite a bit, but most of the mocks have him going before the Vikings pick. He is a cornerback who played exclusively outside deep third all of his senior year, had a great year, but the year before that played nickel and has in various states of necessity, had to move around the formation. But so he gets this idea of, wow, Brian Flores is going to salivate over this guy. He's played multiple positions, but he's played those positions consistently from game to game, and he's like moved in off season. So he's got a lot of different experience, and that is cool. And I definitely don't hate Jahdae Barron. I think that he's properly valued where he's supposed to be. But I think Andrew Mukuba should get just as much credit for being versatile and should be just as much of a, wow, Flores must really be loving this guy. And when you talk about the versatility that would make Brian Flores really pound the table for a dude, I'm much more interested in the guy that could go from, here to there, play to play to play, rather than season to season to season. But it's not a positive for Barron, right? But the thing about Mukuba that gets me versus Malachi Starks and Emenwari is aggression. He is an aggressive safety that will fill the gaps aggressively. He will play things aggressively. He plays stuff like a madman sometimes in terms of how he plays it a little bit like Emenwari plays it. Emenwari plays a really high-risk brand of football, and it's because he's so gosh darn fast that he can recover if he's wrong, so it's fine. Mukuba plays a very similar brand. He just doesn't do it quite as crazy because he's not as fast, right, as Emenwari. But it doesn't mean he's not an athlete. And when he actually is ready to come down and hit somebody, he's going to hit. There's a little more violence. There's a little more aggression. And very crucially, he has a good downhill trigger. The other two guys do not. That is a huge trait for me, for not only the Flores system, but if you're one of those people that's worried about, hey, Flores is going to leave, why do we want to draft guys for the Flores defense? Well, you're probably going to keep the system, but even if you don't, that's a pretty important trait in pretty much any defense. You need your safety to be able to come quickly out of the roof and come join the run fit. He can do that in a way those other two guys can, and it's why I would not be surprised to see him ultimately end up with a better NFL career if he lands in the right fit, right? So a lot of my take here is about scheme fit for putting Mukuba above Starks and Emanwari in my mind's eye of safeties. But there's also a part of it that's universal. Sketch Conk asks, saw that Alec Lewis is speculating that the Vikings move Walter Rouse to guard. Kind of feels like the Vikings do this a ton and hasn't had a great success rate. Sketch Conk, I know you're an everydayer, and I know you know that I complain about this all the time, so you know I'm going to be with you. Do you know what the Vikings track record is for this? Yeah, no, it's catastrophically bad all the time. They take a tackle, they move into guard, and then it makes that player worse. Ezra Cleveland into tackle, doesn't get a second contract. Blake Brandel into guard doesn't get a second contract. Blake Brandel into guard, now he's the guard that everybody wants to get rid of. You could go back years and years and years and find all kinds of Mike Remmerses and all that. Every once in a while, there's a Mike Harris that works out. Unfortunately, he had the medical thing, so his career ended prematurely, but it looked like that was going pretty well. But I would say once you've learned tackle at the NFL level, you probably should just stick there. Unless there's a physical reason, like you're too small to play tackle, we got to move you into guard. Like what's probably going to happen to Gray Zabel, right? Or Marcus Embo, that tackle that broke my brain. Then you could do that, but it's more about, okay, this guy is going to be more successful at this position, not just, hey, I got a tackle, let's move him into guard. I got a question on Blue Sky the other day that somebody was like, hey, what if we moved Brian O'Neill into guard and then drafted a tackle? And it's like, okay, that there's a whole bunch of reasons not to do that, but kind of chiefly among them is, why would you take a player that's good and make him learn a new thing that he could potentially not be good at? Why would you introduce that risk? I don't think that's a good idea with Walter Rouse either. I think Walter Rouse is absolutely built to do that. I think people did think that maybe he would go to guard, but once you've kind of taken that year, I'd rather he just be the swing tackle that he was drafted to be. Alan Page's perfectly pointy and possibly perpendicular pinky asks, who was your first ever draft crush that you found out about pre-draft that you really, really wanted the Vikings to draft? Where did he end up getting drafted? Did he pan out in the league? I am so mad at you for asking this because my answer to this is very embarrassing, okay? So this was well before I got into covering the Vikings, before I even got into really following them any more closely than somebody who reads the paper on, the sports page once a week. But it was kind of a big spark, a big turning point for me was the 2014 draft, because I was excited that the Vikings were going to get a brand new quarterback. Just watched the Matt Castle, Christian Ponder disaster season, and they were going to get an exciting new quarterback, and I was super into it and excited about it. So I kind of got a little more into the draft that year. I started watching draft breakdown film, had no idea what I was looking at, but I thought it was really cool, right? And I fell in love with this safety from Louisville that had set a season high for interceptions. He had done the same thing in high school. Dude was an absolute ball hawk interception machine. His name was Gerard Holloman. Okay. If you're poisoned enough to be really into the 2014 draft with me, you remember the cycle around this guy. And it turned out that he was horrible. He was pure ass. He did not get drafted. He never made an NFL team. And I just looked him up for this. And he spent from 2017 to 2022 in indoor arena leagues, if they were going on, because some of that was the pandemic. But he basically spent more of his career in arena football than the NFL. I loved him. So that was my first draft, true, real draft crush. As a more serious draft analyst, which I would probably not call myself that before 2023, after I made the history doc. And then I really, in 2023, decided I was going to take a different approach and really try. Chop Robinson, Dolphins, looks like that's going pretty well for me. That was the one that I was man, I felt like Mel Kiper and Jimmy Clausen. I was like, if this guy isn't good, I have no idea what I'm looking at. And I might as well just hang him up. Boy, I've got a lot more questions and I didn't get to enough of them yet, but we'll rapid fire through them. Plus your hot takes coming up next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and been like, whoops, uh-oh, where did it all go? Look, sometimes you order out, you get a little carried away online shopping. Whatever it is, it's easy to lose track of your money, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. But it's not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. So yes, you do have like spending tracking tools and things that can, check on like subscriptions or whatever and see where your spending is, but you can start building wealth as well by tracking your accounts, investments, and spending all in the same place instead of juggling a whole bunch of apps. Plus, it makes managing money with a partner smoother than ever. So if you're the kind of person with a joint account with a partner, you can track all of that money, set goals, and all stay on the same page all in one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. Moving right along with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out. If you want to hear more about Marcus Embo breaking my brain, go to patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. Some cool announcements coming to the Patreon soon, by the way. Going to change, streamline. We're redeveloping a little bit on the Patreon page, and I'm excited about it. I think you guys are going to like it too. But crucially, the price is not going to change because I know what that sounds like. So let's move on here with Town Hall Tuesday. More questions coming up here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Procrastinating grad student asks, you've mentioned before that a strength of Ben Johnson's run game. For one, stop procrastinating. Just do the thing, grad student. Okay. Ben Johnson's run game is variety in scheme. That's a strength, yes. And that variety takes time and practice to implement. What might KOC be spending this practice on instead of, if not a more varied run game? A more varied pass game is the answer to that. But also, I think that's me just giving credit to the Lions for being maybe the best team in the league at fitting in a lot of concepts in a limited time. It's not that O'Connell is doing a particularly bad job. And in fact, the complexity of the pass game is a credit to O'Connell for the exact same reason. But Ben Johnson did it more with the run game and left the pass game not simple, but I would say, yeah, a little bit more reliant on the staples. At least that's my understanding of the Lions offense as it was. And I don't know if it's going to be the same thing in Chicago or not. Kevin, maybe the real Kevin, asks, would the Vikings be better off with Drake May and no Turner, no pick 24, or with J.J. McCarthy, Dallas Turner, and whoever they take with pick 24 this year? Look, this draft stinks, so pick 24 is not nearly the asset that I thought it was this time last year, because this time last year, I thought the Vikings were going to stink, and I thought that this would be a top 5 pick. And I think the Vikings behaved that way too, and I don't think they were incorrect too, but obviously things have changed a little bit. That said, I can't answer this. Drake May looked fine his rookie year. We didn't see much from J.J. McCarthy. Ask me again in 2 years. Then we'll know exactly what this was. The other problem, though, is that it was a moot choice. It's really, were the Patriots better off, or would they have rather had 2 first-round picks? J.J. McCarthy and another first-round pick. Would they have rather had that? And then an extra, first-round pick in 2 years. And it really depends on how Drake May turns out, much more than it depends on how J.J. McCarthy turns out, because the Patriots, turned the Vikings away, and whatever offer was on the table wasn't enough. So the Patriots were the ones really in the driver's seat for that decision. Larson Fade says, prior to the upcoming draft, could you give us your personal best case draft options? Kenneth Grant. It's Kenneth Grant. He's the closest thing. I don't know if it says that are realistic, considering we're drafting at 24. Kenneth Grant, calling him realistic is maybe a stretch. I think he will be gone before then. But if you want like pie in the sky, it's Kenneth Grant. There's, where you decide realistic is just as much a part of this question as like who you like. I could say, well, what if Abdul Carter falls because people are scared of his foot injury, which I don't think they will be. It's been pretty widely reported that he's fine. But, there's your like get the gas mask kind of thing. But I think Kenneth Grant, of the people that could feasibly fall to the Vikings, D tackles just don't go high. He's physically very, very large. Teams don't like to spend really high picks on that. But I do think that Kenneth Grant could be like a Dexter Lawrence for somebody, where you just put him in at one tech and just watch everybody like flounder trying to deal with it. And I think that should go pretty high. I want to say maybe the 49ers, what are they at, like 12? Something like that. Another Kevin asks, why don't the Vikings have the same get the same young QB breakout boost in the media that the Bears, Patriots, Falcons, and Broncos all do. Well, because all of those quarterbacks played. So you saw something. Even if that something sucked, you still get that optimism of like, well, he'll turn it around. Whereas J.J. McCarthy is still being treated by the books as a rookie, with the amount of uncertainty as a rookie. The Vikings are 8.5 on the books, like 8.5 win total. That's, we don't know what you're going to be. That's not we hate you. That's we have no idea. And I guess that's fair if you don't know how good J.J. McCarthy is going to be. But I think in general, and I know why Kevin or someone Kevin adjacent is asking this. We had a conversation earlier today at the day I'm recording this about the way that the media like treats Caleb Williams and the way that Vegas in particular treats Caleb Williams. What Caleb Williams did in Chicago was bad. There was a lot of stuff that was bad. You probably heard a lot more about the good stuff because it confirmed every analyst's priors. But a lot of it was bad. You just think back to the first Bears-Vikings game, the one in Soldier Field with that oops almost comeback thing. And remember how that ended for Caleb Williams in overtime? With a horrific 10-second sack where he just sat there in the pocket, nothing happened, and he didn't move, he just froze up and took it. That kind of thing is all over the Bears tape. And so I am a Patreon subscriber of JT O'Sullivan, the QB school. And those were appointment watching for me. I watched, I think, every single Bears video that he made. And I'm not like couching all of his opinions because he really just goes play by play and says, this is what I think happened on it. He doesn't really always pull it together into like a take about Caleb Williams good or Caleb Williams bad. He just says, this is what I think happened on this play. This one's rough. This one's great, blah, blah, blah. But looking through those, and I would say agreeing with him about 95% of the time, it was clear to me that Caleb Williams was as much a part of the problem as anybody else in Chicago. What happened in Chicago offensively was certainly not all his fault. Anybody who's trying to tell you that is just trying to be a hater. But he had issues. He had issues pre-snap, making mistakes at the line of scrimmage, doing things at the line of scrimmage that were just wrong, that were just incorrect reads. Not bad decisions, but were just, no, you just didn't correctly see that there were two high safeties or you didn't correctly identify the front. I think Coleman Shelton was a part of that as well, but those guys were a team there. And a lot of really weird turn downs, like weird, like, why didn't you throw it to that guy kind of stuff, where he looks right at something. It should be a perfectly acceptable package and he moves on instead. A lot of just, being slow earlier in the season, a lot of bailing on the pocket when he shouldn't have done it. Like, there was just a lot of mistakes. And while I think it's perfectly fair to look at that situation and say, okay, well, he'll fix some of that with experience. That is absolutely sensible. And I think it honestly would be unreasonable to expect him not to. But to expect him to break out, really, you're clinging to draft hype. Because what he showed you was a rookie that needed some time to work out some blemishes. What got him drafted is not good. Like, the stuff that got him drafted first overall is not going to help him with that. All that playmaker schoolyard stuff is not going to help him with the parts of the game, the down-to-down NFL quarterbacking that is where those problems arrived. Now, with the Bears, what will help him is what they did on the interior. I think that's one of the most important things any team did all offseason is what the Bears did on the interior of that offensive line. But there's still a long way to go. A long way to go with that receiving room and, of course, Ben Johnson. So, like, the Bears have their quarterback and changed a lot of the stuff around them in a way that is perceived for the better. The Vikings have all the stuff around the quarterback, but changed the quarterback from Sam Darnold to a guy we don't understand. I think it's fair to, I think it's a pretty easy prediction to see how that's going to play out in the national media and the markets and stuff. And the only real answer here is we got to wait to see how it plays out. I have no idea what's going to happen with Caleb Williams. If he's going to improve in all that stuff, or if he's just going to be just as bad, but with fewer excuses because the line's supposed to be better. Both of those things would be totally reasonable. Neither of those things would surprise me at all. And with JJ McCarthy, no outcome would surprise me at all either. We just haven't seen him in an NFL environment at all. We got to see how it goes. And yeah, acting like you know exactly what's going to happen, you're just selling snake oil. All right. Speaking of snake oil, I've got some hot takes. Those could be like selling snake oil, right? Because they're, I don't know. Was that a reach? That was probably a reach. Let's get to them next. Locked on Vikings. Today's episode of Locked on Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, if you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. That's 50-1 on anything you can find. Go just grab some Oklahoma City Thunder game money line at minus 40 gajillion, but you will get $250 in bonus bets, assuming that they do in fact win. Makes betting so easy, whether you're picking the Wolves and your favorites, or you're like hate picking against somebody else, whatever it is, from 3-pointers to steals to assists, or same game wild parlays that you can even do live in the middle of a game. Whatever you want, man. The world is your oyster at FanDuel.com. So head on over there and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Moving along here with the Locked on Vikings podcast. Here comes the hot take part. I love this part. You guys always put together something crazy. Again, if you have a hot take you would like to confess to me anonymously, I will protect your identity and react to your take. Okay, Doobie Keebler, I love that, says, I suspect Kwesi has not signed an extension yet by his own volition. He's a smart man. He's not selling Kwesi stock right now because he knows the value is about to spike because the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl. Skull. That would be an optimistic take. That would be a high-risk take. Kwesi, as a trader, would probably not put all his eggs in the basket of improving on a 14-3 season. His value probably is really high right now because of the success the Vikings have had under his watch. The only season that they didn't make the playoffs and win double-digit games was a season where they lost their starting quarterback to an Achilles injury in October. That said, he hasn't signed an extension yet. By his own admission, because he's busy. Free agency, the draft, trying to work out stuff, parrying away Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the man's been busy. And both he and the Wilfs have been very vocal that they want a deal to be done and that they are taking positive steps toward a deal. There is no deadline on this. As long as it happens before, I don't know, the end of next year, it's fine. So Kwesi hasn't entered the final year of his contract yet. You have to understand, his contract isn't built to end at the end of the season. It's built to end at the draft. So come the draft, he will officially begin his contract year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a deal happen 2 weeks into that contract year, once things are a little less busy. Smoothies are the best soup, which is a hot take in and of itself. That is, I get it, okay? Smoothies and soup, I mean, it's really the difference between hot and cold, right? For the most part. But I mean, yeah, if you take like a butternut squash soup, that is going to be a blended thing, just like a smoothie. So sure, the best soup can't go there with you. Okay. I would probably rather have a butternut squash soup than most smoothies, but hey, that's eye of the beholder. Anyways, that's not even your take. That was just the name. That person says KOC will be regarded as a better coach than Bud in 40 to 50 years, purely because of his ability to motivate a team on his own accord. Oh, that's a wild one. Bud's ability to motivate a team is legendary. He is a guy that is propped up when someone is learning how to coach as this is how you should motivate a team. Bud was awesome, had a great culture, but the team relied way more on players to speak up. Bud will always be my number one, but KOC is special. You're mistaking a weakness for a strength there. The fact that Bud's players were able to solve internal locker room and motivational issues without Bud having to say a word is what makes Bud legendary. The fact that O'Connell has to give a speech is not as good. That's a hot one. Knox Local says, as a Knoxville local, I don't understand your hate of the Tennessee Vols. It seems very misguided, so I hope I can help sway you more in the right direction. Why don't you put yourself in their shoes? Then once you're in their shoes, see what kind of hateful things Arif has to say and what threat he makes. That's the appropriate amount of hate for the Vols. I believe you are far too kind to a team that has the most insufferable Twitter following with nothing to show for it. You had me in the first half, not going to lie. My hate for the Tennessee Vols is rooted entirely in draft prospects. This started with Hendon Hooker being told that Hendon Hooker was like the next coming, turning on his tape and being like, this dude is ass. This dude is not an NFL player. And I think I can probably take my victory lap on that because in the playoffs, he did not take the field. A guy who just joined the team had been there less time than like Josh Dobbs playing the Bears. Like he'd been there for like some weeks, right? And had spent most of that year like coaching high school football. Like he came out of retirement and you lost a job to that guy immediately. The Lions have to hate this guy. This dude is in Trey Lance jail, okay? He's going to get traded for a 6th round pick to some stupid team that also had a high draft grade on him. It's over for Hendon Hooker, okay? That is so damning. But then it was Joe Milton. Ooh, look at him, throw the ball really far. And I was like, this is indistinguishable from Jamarcus Russell hype. And he came in as a backup for like 2 seconds for the Patriots or whatever. I'm not convinced, okay? The reason is Tennessee runs a very college-y offense. It works for them. That's fine, but it doesn't produce NFL players. And I think people are particularly bad at distinguishing this stuff. They get really lost. Most famously, that happened with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes being in an air raid offense was like the biggest knock on him. People were like, it's an air raid. Is that going to translate to the NFL? And then it did. People are just really bad at like identifying what is and isn't going to translate to the NFL because I think they start from production and work backwards a lot. They go, yeah, this offense was good, but was it collegey or was it too collegey or whatever? But rather, for me, watching Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, I see a lot of things that you just won't get away with in the NFL. And now I'm starting to see, like, you could at least respect some defender that would come out that would be really good or something like that. But now you got this Omar Norman Lott dude who didn't start that people are looking at as a 1st-round pick sometimes because of, like, pass rush win rate. Well, yeah, when you play, like, only 3rd downs... Yeah, like, of course. But he played like 7 run snaps a game. They clearly didn't trust that guy. And for that reason, I was looking at him, and when Luke Inman asked me to, he was like, I got to know your thoughts on this guy. And I sent him this like big long thing. He can show you the text. I sent him this big long text, and it ended with like, yeah, I don't know if I would draft this guy. At least not top 150. And people are like, yeah, here he goes to the Vikings at 24. Like, what are you looking at? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll move on. Brian Flores says Teddy Bridgewater as QB2 would generate more toxic discourse than Aaron Rodgers as QB anything. I don't think so. The Teddy Bridgewater, whatever was toxic about the Teddy Bridgewater discourse was very much what you always get with, a quarterback playing behind a bad O-line or with not very inspiring receivers, right? Which, before 2016, Stephon Diggs wasn't seen the way Diggs was. Thielen wasn't seen the way that Thielen was. Thielen hadn't even broken out. He was wide receiver 4 in 2014 or in 2014 and 15. Like he wasn't quite Thielen, right? So all that discourse was basically about whether or not excuses are valid. And that's very annoying discourse. Super agree with that. But Aaron Rodgers coming in would things would immediately get political anytime you talked about the Vikings. That would kind of suck. Fries Tibia says, I think we should go back to the original Norseman looking to the opposite side. Maybe something would change. Oh, it's just like a superstition take. All right. Yeah, fair. Cook. Also, I think Harrison Smith should be the first to hold the Lombardi this year instead of the owners. It should always be the players first. Billionaires should stay in their boxes. Yeah, Cook. Procrastinating grad student again. Dude, stop procrastinating. Do your grad student work. Says, with young promising depth at the most relevant positions, the Vikings aren't in as dire need of extra draft picks as people are claiming. Therefore, the Vikings would be better off trading up for a real game changer like Kenneth Grant than trading back to acquire more picks. Wow. That is, I think the hottest part of that take is about the depth. But like, yeah, the DT depth is good. It's young and it's deep. But who is the starter in 2027 at some of these positions gets to be a really hard question. And that's why people want more draft picks to get starters for 2026 and 2027. But they've got the starters for now. So they are in a pretty good spot. But I also think people just really want to have like a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Like they just want to have every one in every round. And if you don't, like it's like uncomfortable and people like get really weird about it. But anyways, the last one comes from Kevin Garnett. thanks for listening, Kevin, says that's probably not, once again, a person lying about being a Kevin, who says it's better to be a Wolves fan right now than the Vikings. The Wolves have better owners now and a better front office head, have made 4 straight playoff appearances and know what they are building. While the Vikings have a bad GM but a great head coach with a run-first college QB who might get everyone fired in 2 years. Look, I can't predict what's going to happen in 2 years. Yeah, if JJ McCarthy sucks, everyone's probably getting fired in 2 years. You clearly think that's going to happen because you think he's a run-first college QB. I would encourage you to think a little bit harder about what you saw from JJ McCarthy in college. If you were just looking at how much Michigan ran and you're making the logical leap that if they ran the ball a lot, it must mean they don't trust the quarterback, you're not thinking about that part hard enough. And you probably should consider other reasons why a team might run the ball a lot. Like, for example, if they're up 50 by halftime, because they were just bigger and stronger than the other team, which happened quite a bit in that championship season. Or alternatively, if you're worried that the quarterback is bad every time they ask him to pass, why don't you look purely at situations where running wasn't an option, where Michigan was forced to throw the ball? How did he do there? You will find, especially on 3rd and long, historically good results. And I am not using that term lightly. That's the best way I know to kind of parry that away. Or you could say, why don't we do something a little more direct, not do all of this like deductive reasoning crap where we're trying to say, well, the run pass ratio was, but why? And instead say, well, let's just look at the passing reps. Let's not care about the run reps at all. You're right. They ran a lot. Let's not give him any credit for that and cut them out of the cut up and only watch the times he passed. That seems like a pretty good way to look at a quarterback. And if you would like, you can look at a number of Patreon videos that I did about him, one from before the draft, so I'm not being a homer, one from after the draft, and one from the camp clips that we got from and watching his mechanics. You can actually see exactly what he did wrong mechanically, what the Vikings were working on. And from Albert Breer's Monday Morning Quarterback, which actually came out the Monday, today I'm recording this, came out on Monday, is all about JJ McCarthy and exactly those mechanical things that I pointed out months ago. So let me cook. As for the Wolves part of this, I have no idea how to engage with it because I don't follow the Wolves at all. Couldn't even tell you who owns the Wolves. Is it Alex Rodriguez? Did that go through? I don't know. Somebody tell me in the comments what happened with the Wolves, and good luck in the play-in, I guess. But I think the Vikings also just made the play-in version for the NFL the wild card round. So I don't know. Seems kind of like the same to me, but we'll see. Good luck, Wolves. I'll see you all tomorrow. Maybe some in-depth DT talk. Maybe a little more on the safeties if you guys want that. Whatever happens, I'll see y'all for that. And as always, Skol.